receive penalties, including jail term for those who flout the Coronavirus Disease Health Protection Law of 2021, signed by President Buhari. But how far is the vaccine plan? We'll look into that tonight. And Nigeria corruption perception worsens as Transparency International releases its yearly report, where Nigeria declines for a fourth year and worse since 2013. Hello everyone, and welcome to Politics Today on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimbaloye. We begin tonight with a drama, perhaps, and an unexpected fisticuff. Take a look at it. Those are members of some oil-producing communities in a free-for-all during the public hearing of the Petroleum Industry Bill at the National Assembly. The fight started when one of the leaders of a group known as Host Communities of Nigeria Producing Oil and Gas stood up to speak on behalf of the host communities. He was opposed by members of other host communities present, and a fight ensued. Security forces present, including the Sergeant at Arms, had to break up the fight, prompting the House Ad hoc Committee on PIB to allow each host community to speak.
He's the one doing the job in this country. He's the one doing the job in this country. And he's not going anywhere. Tell him to sit down, he's not going anywhere. Are you see telling you that? Tell him that he should.
Well, let's go into yet another matter. Fighting corruption may be one of President Muhammadu Buhari's government's top agenda. At least they mentioned 3 in 2015. But the last 4 years, the perception appears to be getting worse by the year. At least that's how much the Transparency International report on Corruption Perception Index report tells us. In the 2020 index released today, the country scored 25 out of 100 points, dropping to 149 out of the 180 countries surveyed. The 2020 rating is 1 point below that of 2019, when the country scored 26 points, and 2 points below its ranking in 2018 and 2017, when it got 27 points. On a sub-regional basis, Nigeria is among the worst performing countries in West Africa, only second to Guinea-Bissau, which was ranked 165. And now to our conversation for today, and it's about coronavirus and how you can keep safe, especially what the government is doing to keep everyone safe. Well, we do know now that there will be stiffer penalties for those who flout the COVID-19 protocol and the rules. The President, Muhammadu Buhari, yesterday signed the bill allowing punishment in the Coronavirus Health Protection Regulation bid in a bid to strengthen and enforce Nigeria's protocols on COVID-19. The president signed the 6-part regulation, which covers restrictions on gatherings, operations of public places, mandatory compliance with treatment protocols, offenses and penalties, as well as enforcement and application. Beyond this law, is looking critically at the efforts of the federal government in keeping everyone safe. Well, those are for you there, some of the breakdown of the COVID-19 health protection law as signed by President Muhammadu Buhari. We're looking at issues regarding vaccines, this law that the president has signed, and so many other issues on your mind as a citizen that you need to know. And this is some of the other figures and facts that you need to know that are important in our coverage of this COVID-19 and how you need to keep safe. Of course, we do know that Nigeria, how much of the test Nigeria has gotten. We'll give you more details of that in the course of the program. But tonight we have the Minister of Health, Dr. Osagie Hanire, who joins us today on the program. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for joining us tonight on the program. But let's begin by getting your view on the law signed by President Muhammadu Buhari yesterday, the Coronavirus Protection Law of 2021, which seeks stiffer penalties for those who flout the protocols of COVID-19. But what happens, Honorable Minister, to state laws, some of which contain different provisions or similar provisions on these penalties and adherence? Have you considered harmonization of these federal and these state laws, or how exactly do you think that these laws are going to be implemented?
Well, in the first place, thank you for having me and inviting me to speak on this subject. The laws that the law that was signed is actually contains what has always been brought out by the PTF in all the in all the briefings that we have had. So there's really almost nothing new. The briefings by the members of PTF contain virtually everything that you see in the law there. And well, the harmonization with what the states have, I think that's a question for lawyers to look into when the time comes in.
But as it stands right now, there are a lot of consideration I know that you have on your mind. We've been hearing suggestions as regarding how the nation is going to contain this virus. Those who are talking about another lockdown. And the question will be, is there any consideration of the economy? Should there be a consideration for a lockdown? And some of the factors that emerged after that in other lockdown, the NSAS protests that emerged afterwards, is the federal government considering some of the implications?
Well, the lockdown is always a last resort. It is not the first step that governments take. And if you hear of the countries which have had to do lockdown, the UK and some European countries, it was because of they were getting figures that were running virtually amok. So the consequence of a lockdown on the economy, including the social consequence, such that you do not take that as a first step. So we are trying very hard to make sure that it doesn't come to a lockdown, and the compliance and participation of citizens and adherence to all these rules will go a long way in ensuring that we get what we want without extra pain.
A lot of people perhaps are worried about the economy, Honorable Minister. I mean, the money is in the pocket of an average Nigerian and the economy at large. In some other countries, the government are rolling out monies to give to individuals. Aside the economy at large and the individuals, what are you looking at, Honorable Minister, in the impact of the COVID-19?
Everybody is worried about the economy, and it is for the economy to run in such a way that you can balance livelihoods and lives, save lives and also save livelihoods. That's why we're going the way we are going. The first thing, of course, is life. You want to save your life, and you also save the livelihood. The 80% of Nigerians live in the informal sector, work in the informal sector, and the consequences of some of their actions sometimes can affect the health outcomes that we expect in handling the COVID-19 challenge.
So, Honorable Minister, perhaps one thing that is also important is when the government is talking about adherence to the protocols, and the policies of government these days also is giving some people worries. Perhaps one major issue is the registration for NIN, which NIMS is overseeing. You see a lot of Nigerians who are trooping to that place, and people were asking the question, is that the right time to bring this kind of policy to bear, or to ask Nigerians to go out, giving them a very tough deadline?
The government has been for a very long time engaged in community messaging. It has been said that we should all adhere to social distancing, use sanitizers, wear masks, and don't gather in crowds. So it is expected, I believe, that people will keep to these laws. It should become second nature. So even if you are invited to register at a NIN, for example, it shouldn't be impossible to keep the distancing. You will see that even at the airport and in several other service facilities, people do keep distancing. And at the registration of the NIN, which was to keep to a deadline, I mean, at least to periods that were set, the rollout came on, and the public did not adhere to the rules. It was not calculated that it should be that way.
I think, Minister, one thing that is critical is the timing. So, I mean, you cannot predict how people will gather when they are rushing for time. When they're looking at the deadline, there was a deadline and it's been shifted again. When the government says do not gather in large numbers in public, but yet again you're asking people to go and register for a particular thing that the deadline is closed. Isn't that a recipe for some kind of disaster?
No, not necessarily, because you have the possibility of queuing. It is something that's already well known in the country, that you remember since the days of war against indiscipline, people were taught to queue. If you go to the bank, you queue. If you go to the post office, you queue. And if you go and register at NIN for your identity papers, you also queue. That is what is expected. You queue if you go to any of the service stations. But the loss of control, of crowd control, it's probably something that the authorities didn't reckon with, and they should have probably thought about that and enforced, or rather recommended queuing and placing distancing. If you go to the airport now, they mark out where you should stand and where people should stand and the distances that should be between individuals.
Before we go on our break, Honorable Minister, let me ask you, have you ordered for vaccine? Because we understand that there are talks by the federal government in getting either Pfizer or other companies to get us vaccine. Give us the status report of the vaccine. Have you paid for it? Have you ordered it? How many?
Okay, thank you. That's a good question. The sources of vaccines we have at the moment are two. First is the COVAX facility, which we registered for about the end of last year, which was supposed to start delivering in January. It has now been moved to February because of challenges of getting the supplies. And the initial wave that they have agreed to give us will be 100,000 doses. Parallel to that, we are working with the African Union. The African Union has a mechanism called the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, of which the Minister of Health of Nigeria is a member. The chair is the President of South Africa. It was inaugurated in November of 2020. And at the meeting we had on the 6th of January, it was announced that they had a mix of 270 million doses of vaccine ready, or going to be ready, because they are on order. Now, we immediately applied for 10 million doses, but at the meeting we had 2 days ago, the AVAT, as it is called, the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, announced that actually they had now done an allocation according to population. We are taking a whole of Africa approach because it should not be everyone for itself. The large economies of the world are taking care of their own vaccine needs. The European Union is going as a group, taking care of its collective vaccine needs. And it is a good thing that the African countries are also going as a group to see to their own vaccine needs so that no country is left behind. Not all countries will have the resources immediately to provide vaccines. So
Minister,
Afro-Exim Bank is backing the procurement of vaccines, and Nigeria is allocated just over 41 million doses of vaccines of 3 types.
Minister, we'll take a break, but when we come back, we have other questions as regarding locally made vaccines. When will that be ready? How far with that? The monies for the vaccines, which is has got some kind of ripples in the National Assembly. We want to get your take on that too, but that's going to be after the break. Honorable Minister, please stay with us. Everyone, we'll be right back. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us right here on Politics Today Channels Television. We've been having a conversation with the Minister of Health, Dr. Osage Ehaniye. We are all over the world at a very crucial point in the second wave of COVID-19. How governments across the world are handling this is very critical to the lives of the people and also the economy. So the minister is giving us insight into some of the issues that have been raised over the last few days. Thank you so much, Honorable Minister, for staying with us right here. Let me get your take quickly. So precisely, Minister, when should we be expecting? Do you have an exact day in February that we will roll out the vaccine, dispensing of the vaccine?
We do not have an exact date. The date it comes out depends on when the manufacturers are able to deliver. And that is not something that any country can enforce at this time. You hear that the European Union were threatening to sue AstraZeneca because the vaccines that were supposed to be delivered were not delivered at the right time, and their timeline for conducting their vaccination looked like it was disrupted by that. Now, the producers of vaccines are working at full time. There are countries that place firm orders, and every country is scrambling. There's a vaccine scramble going on, if I will use that word. And not all countries are getting the vaccines at what they want. I think it was yesterday when the U.S. president announced that they are ordering another 200 million to make their order 600 million. Now, that has to be taken again out of the vaccine production. And if you have the vaccine production plant inside your country, then of course you have an advantage against those who have to wait for you to deliver. So the timelines are not in the hands of the recipients in this case, unfortunately.
Okay, so I wanted to also know, have we paid, as Nigeria paid for the vaccines which we're expecting? Or is the quota that we're getting for free?
First of all, the COVAX is giving the first vaccine for the first 20% of the population free of charge. But we shall now pay, when the vaccines are going to be delivered, countries will pay the logistics of delivery and administration. But as far as the AVAT facility is concerned, the African Vaccine Acquisition Task Team, the acquisition is for a whole of Africa, a continental approach. And the Afrexim Bank is paying for the vaccines, and countries will now refund the Afrexim Bank. Nigeria is mobilizing resources, has some funds ready. Vaccines have not been delivered, but we are ready to make a down payment. There's a down payment required of about 15%, and then repayment over 5 years or 7 years. This is in consideration of African countries who are not so well endowed, but who also need to be protected, because there is a no country left behind policy. And again, if you succeed in vaccinating all your citizens and your neighbors have not done the same, then you too are not safe. So it is in the interest of all countries who are looking for vaccines to ensure that their neighbors also get the vaccines. So that's why the whole of Africa approach is very sensible. It's exactly the same philosophy as the whole of Europe approach, and the South Americans are doing the same thing. And because most of the countries in Africa are low or low middle income countries, many may not be able to put the money down cash, so they will have period of time to pay. There is no rush to pay. The money is prepaid, but Nigeria will make a substantial deposit when it is time for calling in the cash.
Okay, so in essence, I understand that Nigeria has earmarked about 10 billion to locally produce vaccines. Although I know that some of the lawmakers are not happy with you because they wanted you to appear before them. When do you hope to appear before them? And if you can tell us, what is the hope of the locally produced vaccines that we hope that will happen? When will it happen?
Well, in the first place, let me correct your statement. You do not say that the lawmakers were not happy. They wanted to correct the point. The 10 billion which was in the budget was not for production, or it was for actually, well, if you like, manufacturing, not necessarily of COVID vaccines. And because it was put down in the budget before the COVID activity came up. So that money was supposed to go to support government's participation in a vaccine making company here in Nigeria. But as the other part of your question, the research, Nigeria is actively supporting and encouraging research. So we have research going on at the Nigeria Institute of Medical Research, and also at the research center in Ede and other places. We have scientists who have already done the precursors for the vaccines and who are ready to test them. That requires substantial investment, and we're looking for investors in there, because once you have done the phase 1, 2, 3 trials and you are ready to manufacture, you look for a manufacturer who's going to use your product and produce marketable vaccines. So the stage we are in now is to get to do the clinical trials, and then before you look for a production plant to carry out the production.
Honorable Minister, perhaps as we wrap up now on the issue.
Candidate vaccine.
Say that again. Sorry.
Until it comes out, it is called a candidate vaccine. So we have candidate vaccines.
Okay, great. I'm very sure you must have heard what Mr. Bill Gates, the American billionaire, said about the issue of vaccines and the healthcare sector in Nigeria and other parts of Africa. He's of the opinion that rather investing in vaccines, that African governments should focus on improving healthcare system, that looks like a more reasonable pathway in securing lives. Do you agree?
Well, it is not one or the other from our point of view. We want to do both. The vaccines are necessary because that is the way out of the attack that we are experiencing from COVID-19. On the other hand, strengthening the health system is what we have been about. We are rebuilding our primary healthcare system. We have been doing it. We have a fantastic design for our health system now. We're also trying to resuscitate the secondary health care. We are building the health system from bottom up for a sustainable health system, and have plans to strengthen and reorganize the tertiary health sector and create specialty hospitals that are dedicated to certain subject matters, to have a health system in which Nigerians have confidence and will not need to be going abroad. So it is not one or the other. It is not vaccinate or health system. We are going to be doing both.
Honorable Minister for Health, Dr. Osagie Ehianiwe, thank you indeed for talking to us on Channels Television tonight.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. And that's our show for today, everyone. Many thanks for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. Bye-bye.